Moon was definitely a weak link for the Thunderbirds side. Yesterday, he played let's just say, very underwhelming. And, different day. Hopefully he's refreshed and ready to go because we know how good of a player Moonmander is capable of being if it's one of his good
Yeah.
days. And, hey, giving him an Abaddon, definitely a hero that's it's hard to mess up on. Not say that he needs to be given this type of hero, but hey, it's a Crystal Maiden, it's an Abaddon. You can hardly be upset about this opening. CM first especially, definitely one of the safer openings, and Baden definitely with that extra mana, put the screws to that safe lane, which GG are looking towards as well. The Warlock pick securing a little bit of team fight, as well as a very early Ricky pick, which I'm
Yeah.
actually quite a big fan of.
Yeah, I mean, Thunderbirds prioritized banning Ricky and Earth Spirit yesterday. Instead, they opted to ban the Lina in place of one of those heroes here. And I can't blame them for doing that. But at the same time, it almost feels like they're going to need to give some help over to this Abaddon early on, as Ricky, once he's or as he's low in levels, can really punish an Abaddon. CM much the same. She wants to get off to the jungle, wants to make a pull or two, wants to kill a big creep with that frostbite, kind of get her farm up, maybe into a Midas or at least an early set of tranquils. And Ricky, he can really throw the screws to that kind of approach. So they do need, maybe a self-sufficient kind of lane support for their carry here that can allow CM and Abaddon to perhaps tank up. Maybe they look for something like a Tusk. They ran that yesterday, something a little more aggressive that can find out the Ricky, dust him up, and maybe kill him off. So we'll see if they go that kind of aggressive route. The other support that I really love kind of by his lonesome in lane is Warlock. Feels like, just a couple clarities with Warlock, you and your safe laner are healthy all early game long. So GG, I really like their opening thus far. But as you mentioned, Thunderbirds, very stable duo in the CM Abaddon.
We can see GG are concerned with having their Ricky be the dominant force around the map. I've had so many games in a row now where Monkey King is just not picked at all, not banned at all, and it's kind of throwing me for a loop. But either way, the Treant is going to be kicked out along with that Ogre Magi, two heroes who could definitely play that Monkey King-esque style. Teams have been still willing to pick up Earth Spirit, but perhaps shying away from it a little bit nowadays, and there's still a possibility for the Thunderbird side, but you got to be careful when you're pairing up with that CM, as you mentioned, very passive in the very early stage of the game, just wants to jungle, and therefore is not really going to be super eager to go into a fight. Got a little bit of hate now from Thunderbirds as CCNC's TA
Yeah.
going to be kicked out along with that Terrorblade. Just generally strong heroes, generally just very comfortable heroes that is GG tend to frequent. But hey, they already have a good amount of team fight. Maybe will have to concern themselves with a little bit of stun control or just burst damage, I guess. War's Ursa now on the field.
Yeah, it does feel like to me that CCNC has been more of the focus of the team than I had anticipated. It's almost like an old Liquid or OG style where they play around him almost miracle-esque. Yawar and Snaking, they're kind of sacrificial. So I really like the kind of the approach from Thunderbirds in target banning him with the Lina and the TA. I think easily his two best heroes. So it'll be interesting to see how GG is able to adapt. Already going for the Ursa here, a pretty interesting pick. You can really punish the Abaddon hard in lane, and you don't need too much help. So this allows the Ricky to roam around. You keep the Warlock nearby. Ursa can just run at the Abaddon before he has enough levels, zone him out of the lane, and just cops a couple of Shadow Words to keep himself healthy. So I don't mind the Ursa pick here, but I was going to say CM already one good hero at kiting Ursa around. Kunkka almost even better with the X marks the spot. And, for aeons and aeons, even before the change to Enrage, Ursa's biggest issue has always been being kited in fights. If he can't, dump his load and get a quick kill, he becomes a lot less effective. This, though, could be almost a direct solution to all the CC available to Thunderbirds with the Omni pickup here. That is going to mean it's a core Omni, though, more than likely.
And, tools that go through Repel are really, really rare since looking at the Thunderbird side with the Abaddon already picked up. Usually those tools like Beastmaster, Batrider all go towards the offlane if they're looking to cut through the Omnite Repel and get towards that Ursa. Still, this Kunkka pick, as you said, I really like it just defensively. Like, you're looking at Warlock, Ricky as teamfight on the other side, so just landing a boat makes you pretty much immune to the damage that those two heroes are able to put out. Perhaps not Fatal Bonds, but everything else for sure. And the early stage of the Kunkka is probably potentially most powerful moment, but also his riskiest, is kind of smoothed over by the fact that he'll have setup with the Crystal Maiden, and he'll have extra mana to throw those extra torrents out. So Crystal Maiden Kunkka, not a support duo we see all of that often, but definitely able to work very well, especially if ISGG pick up this heavy of a melee draft with 3 and counting. So Thunderbirds now grabbing the Weaver, and this is what I was going to say earlier, ISGG don't really have all that much to stun a Weaver. Ricky's great versus the Weaver, that's for sure, and teaming up with the Ursa, they will occasionally be able to kill the Weaver off that way, but this is a Weaver with an Abaddon. You gotta have some stuns.
Yeah, definitely so, and they've got enough control around the Weaver that I think smokescreen alone is not a scary enough proposition for Thunderbirds to avoid this pick. You've got an Abaddon behind, so Aphotic Shield, it should more than likely give you enough time to, buy you enough time to get out of the smokescreen and be able to Shikuchi or time lapse, whichever is more appealing. But again, it's kind of direct counter the Ursa. Weaver, not easy to sit on and lock down without something like an Abyssal Blade, and with the lack of CC overall in ISGG's lineup, Thunderbirds look much more slated to do well in this draft than they have in either of the 2 drafts from yesterday. So definitely looks like they've adapted here and learned something. I mean, still, ISGG, they're, very much so the quintessential snowball lineup. The one thing that they're lacking right now, if they do get ahead early on, is that building hitter. They don't really have any sort of siege available to them. So, kind of the problem with Ursa drafts in general always seems to be you get this big kill advantage, you get Roche, but then you can't really take buildings. And that's always difficult against, the spam of a CM and a Kunkka, and even just a Abaddon to kind of jump into the front lines if he's able to pick up something like a Radiance and just clean up the clear creep wave. So still lacking that from ISGG's side. I'm not saying they're heavily outdrafted at this point yet, but I definitely think Thunderbirds are very comfortable with where they sit.
And as far as getting a building hitter is concerned, it's going to be what ISGG want, but they also need stuns, and I'm not really sure if there are any mid lanes that do that. Dragon Knight does it. I mean, that's pretty much all he does, and I guess it's kind of feasible. It's not super likely. Shadow Fiend will be kicked out. I mean, at least ISGG will have the last pick here, so they will be able to get, at worst, an even matchup for that mid lane. Plus, they have the Ricky, so they should be able to pull together something decent. And looking at the Thunderbird side, looking for that mid lane hero of Wii to be picked up now. Again, the pool isn't really all that deep, but just someone like an Invoker just seems decent here. An Ice Wall will completely crush ISGG in team fights.
Yeah, and Invoker actually combos really well with the Ricky as well, so can kind of amplify his effectiveness early on. You have a lot of you're lacking control in the rest of your lineup. EMP is very good versus Weaver as well, so I really do like the Invoker here, especially with the SF ban. There's the possibility for Dragon Knight too, but to some extent, Dragon Knight feels like he ramps up a little too slowly for the rest of the ISGG lineup. Now, having a Repel on his side, it may make it much easier for them to just throw a Repel on him and hit buildings, throw a Shadow Word on him, things of that nature. So I still do like the pick here, but, Tinker for Thunderbird, it's very good in terms of what mid laners are left. He's always going to have a good 1v1 matchup, it feels, in this mid lane. So, I mean, you could go for something like a Juggernaut for mid for ISGG, and that'll give you the healing ward and kind of a decent matchup against Tinker, as you can purge the mischance and also push the wave with the Blade Fury. But still, I don't think there's anything great for ISGG in this last pick.
Yeah, Ember is a hero that they can kind of sack in the mid lane. Won't have a great time versus Tinker, but will have a good time trying to catch up to a Tinker. And Chains is, again, not really great versus Weaver, but it's something for ISGG. And it is going to be picked up here, as CCNC's options were very, very low by the end of it. Again, it is going to be a struggle of a lane, as Thunderbirds with Kunkka, Crystal Maiden on the roam, having a Tinker with extra mana from the CM. It's going to be a brutal lane matchup for CCNC, but I'm not really sure if ISGG had many options by the end of it. No, I'm definitely on the ISGG hype train. I'm excited to see how they're going to perform, but in this particular game, I do feel like Thunderbirds have a couple of heroes who just are lacking answers on the other end.
Yeah, I would agree that they're at a bit of a drafting disadvantage here. A lot's going to depend on the lanes, and there's no lane that they really look like they can crush. They can get a couple of kills on the Abaddon early on, but with a CM and a Weaver, Weaver having Arcane Aura, he's almost entirely self-sufficient in lane. So you can even roam the Kunkka over for Saxa and help Moon out early on. So it's going to be very hard to find openings for ISGG.
Well, SGG have been on a really big tear. They've already 2-0'd Thunderbirds yesterday, and it wasn't even really that close. But that was also with CCNC getting mostly his most comfortable heroes. And it does seem like Thunderbirds, at least in their banning phase, definitely took that one to heart. So load up into this game, and we'll see if ISGG are still, in fact, on fire, and if Thunderbirds have gotten their act together. And it does seem like, for the most part, no surprises here. I mean, War is going to be loading out on the Ursa. He's got Stan King behind him. Nice, solid lane, lots of healing for that Ursa, and they'll be able to bully back the Abaddon. Sneaking, taking the Omni Knight up towards the north, along with CCNC's Ember for right now, and Flea. He's been playing out of his mind recently. He's going to be handling the Ricky, and he sees a very early CM who has a Frostbite Snowman. I don't think I've seen that before, but could be sick, I guess.
Very recent cosmetic, but yeah, I think Francis Lee should be just fine here top lane. Definitely agree with you that he's been, one of the stalwarts early on, at least for ISGG, but I think they've all been playing well. I mean, we haven't really seen Snaking and Yawar do anything substantial for a while, so really nice to see these players try and kind of crack tier 1.5, and they've definitely performed recently in the kind of tier 2 scene. So we'll see how they get off. But yeah, a great call on your part by the Ember, and specifically because it almost feels like maybe the only comfort pick left for CCNC in that 5th slot. So despite it not being a great matchup, even if he's blinded, he can still get a few last hits with the Flame Guard. And it does offer a route for them, as you were mentioning, with the lack of CC. Torrent going to be thrown out bottom lane, and the rune is going to be snatched by Saxa. They're also getting to a little scrap here with the War. Even Resolution's rotated down, but he is shadow worded up, so it feels like he'll be able to walk away from this one.
Ooh, they pull the wave as well. It's going to mess with this bottom lane quite a bit. Yawar is off of the lane right now. Not getting that bounty rune really hurts. Obviously, he's going to set himself up for a poor man shield in the near future, but it's going to be a little bit further away. So a little bit of a decent start there for the Thunderbirds side. Getting a 3-1 rune split, obviously never bad. And they will be sticking around with these heroes for right now. I mean, we mentioned the Ursa being able to put the screws to an Abaddon, and that is certainly true, but not if the Abaddon isn't here. Ursa doesn't really have all that much game versus Resolution as long as he's careful with his Shikuchi's cooldown. And as long as he has a hero, really any hero kind of nearby, Resolution shouldn't die, and Yawar's going to take a lot of poke damage. And it's not even going to cost their safe lane either. This Omni Knight versus Evil Omni Knight matchup is pretty much perfectly even.
What a lovely match of lore we have in the top lane with the basically Death Knight versus the Omni Knight. But the other dynamic that we kind of mention constantly is that when you have one of these roaming supports like a Ricky, an Earth Spirit, one way to just make his early game lackluster is to force him to be somewhere. And an aggressive tri-lane is going to make Flea's movement basically predictable, so that even if they do get a kill, CCNC or the mid lane for Thunderbird for we should be a fairly easy one. He can press forward against CCNC and know that more than likely there's not going to be any enemy attendance in his lane.
We saw Wii yesterday really just struggle to get any rotations out of his lane without any pressure, having a decent matchup. In fact, a matchup where he's winning quite handily. Definitely going to encourage him to do so, especially towards this bottom lane. I don't really know why this Satyr fired 2 shockwaves at Thunderbirds. Again, this Satyr AI is really all sorts of messed up, but either way, Thunderbirds still have a good angle on Yawar. Here comes the Snowman onto the Ursa with the right clicks to follow. Ursa will die to the hands of Saxa, and Stan King, and he's way too far away to do anything about that. Flea left the lane, which I don't think Thunderbirds knew for sure, but either way, we will actually end up killing CCNC. Okay, 2-0 over Thunderbirds. A pretty good start.
Yeah, interesting. He skilled up March. Check the spike recap. It doesn't actually show the usage of spells, but maybe baited him in with the Flame Guard to walk into the March. He doesn't have a point in missile and gets a kill. It's actually very impressive for Wii. But yeah, like we said, merits of the aggressive try. It's going to mean that more than likely the Ricky won't be in that mid lane, and they can allow Wii to play a little more freely.
Well, this is going to be, so far, 3 lanes winning pretty handily from the Thunderbird side. I guess, top lane is going to be more so a wash. But Abaddon offensively definitely has a little bit more than the Omni Knight. The shield is pretty much matched by Purification, but this curse, this blade, definitely does a lot more than Degen Aura. As great as Degen Aura is, curse lets you kill things, and Degen Aura really doesn't. So there Yawar is going to be in a little bit of a scuffle again with Resolution, and Saxa really wants this Kunkka because he knows he's dead. He'll clap once more, but that will be his death. on the bottom lane. Again, no one helping out this Ursa. He mentioned earlier you are and Sneaking kind of being sacrificial at the expense for CCNC, but not like this. CCNC is going to have to carry a lot if UR's not able to get Jack on this bottom lane.
Yeah, and the way his lane is going, it doesn't look like that's going to be, an easy task to complete. So we doing well. The aggressive tri lane so far successful. Resolution a bit low on mana and maybe in a bit of trouble here as Francis is going to be stalking him, but has a Sakuchi in just a second and does have the Shrine available, so he'll be just fine for now. Misery's been able to be a little bit greedy, has his level 3 holding a skill point, and he'll return back to this bottom lane. But yeah, I definitely want to agree with you that even though the 1v1 in the top lane is not necessarily Abaddon favored, that a level 6 or 7 Abaddon feels more effective than an Omni Knight with the same level in farm. And yeah, UR catches a Torrent, got the bugs on him as well. Crystal Nova gonna keep him back. And he actually does stand and fight for a bit, brings Rezo a little bit low, but he's just going to accept his fate. His teammate's going to TP out by the side chop, and Thunderbirds having a very good early game. Meanwhile, though, mid lane, Wee does end up going down to the combination of Fleet and CCNC. So a very nice kill for them to find after what's been a disaster of an early game other than that.
As the Riki, you kind of have to go all in for these plays. You know that bottom lane is pretty much a lost cause at this point. A Riki being there is going to do very little to influence the outcome of that lane, so you may as well go and try to gain something elsewhere. Omni Knight dropped the Abaddon really low, but Abaddon has since healed up, so Riki moving up towards top maybe not going to be very useful, and then at that point it's like, well, the only place you can go is towards this Tinker, so a much needed kill for the IsGG side. Flea going to get himself into the game a little bit, and getting CCNC close to the level 6 mark increases the kill power substantially on Wee, who already is at that level 6 mark. But yeah, we can see this is a pretty desperate act. You are level 3 Ursa, 5 minutes in, now jungling. Feels bad, man.
Yeah, if Wee doesn't get a good start as well, I mean, CCNC innately a counter to this Tinker. Relies heavily on magic over his right clicks. He's very mobile, so can chase down the Tinker, find him out, has the route to cancel the TP. So definitely a very good matchup for him later into the game if he can get a good start. So gotta agree with you on the front that, I mean, Riki, he almost is forced to make these plays mid lane as long as he can do it, without being too predictable. He will not be able to snag the bounty room top lane from Moon, who will end up picking that up. But yeah, much needed kill for them in the mid lane. Yawar, he's already kind of sacked the bottom lane, as you mentioned, and started to jungle. Stanking nearby, he's going to throw down the Fatal Bonds on Rezo, but Rezo really playing with no inhibitions in this early game on the Weaver.
And Stanking narrowly dodging what could have been a lot of damage. Saxa definitely on the aggro here. Misery hasn't really been playing your normal CM, playing a very aggressive style. And with the Kunkka, that's pretty much what you have to do. But it's still level 4, is perhaps a little bit under-leveled compared to what a CM could be right now. But, I mean, get 2 kills on the lane. Can't be too upset about that. Yawar is going to return to this bottom lane along with CCNC. So this is a bait. And they're going to take it onto the Warlock, who's going to take a lot of damage, forced to heal himself. They get the chains off onto the Weaver, and they will roast him. No time lapse just yet. Here comes CCNC for more. So makes a jump in, looking for Misery, chugging his bottle. One more Remnant jump, and Misery is going to not have a Shrine either. That kind of sucks. He's going to snowball onto the Ember Spirit, and it will be the CM to escape, but up towards top lane now, Sneaking. Wow, destroying Moon on top. Zax is going to arrive. There is nothing available, though. He actually didn't have any cooldowns, because he just used it on bottom, I guess. And they have to let the Omni Knight go, so Sneaking doing a pretty darn good job top, but it's IsGG to claim a pretty nice win.
Yeah, they were trading a bit earlier, and Snaking was able to pop the borrowed time without damaging him thereafter. So he was sitting on about 40% HP without his ultimate up, and Snaking, wisely so, just took a dive at it, forced the rotation out, and will be able to make it back to safety. So unfortunately doesn't net himself a kill, but as you mentioned, the big kill bottom lane with that rotation in from CCNC, and despite not doing amazingly in CS, 27-2 to the 37-14 of Wee's Tinker, who, some of that is jungle. CNC still had a admirable early game and can transition well here.
I like this, giving Saxa this mid lane for a little bit. We currently jungling, which is rather low on the stacks, but still something that Tinker can do and really should do. Getting a level 6 on this Kunkka will make Ursa's life even more difficult. Adding another stun to the combo will, help him out, killing off the Ember Spirit, and it's pretty free. We see GG doing the exact same thing, giving Stan King that level 6 experience. But the difference is that if Stan King gets in range of an X marks, he's just dead, whereas Kunkka will never die to that Warlock. Someone who might die towards top lane is Resolution. He's going to get the Shikuchi off, and they had no detection. I don't know what they were expecting was going to happen, but they forced a rotation for Moon. I guess that's not nothing, but Moon is suddenly just going to get jumped, so bluff called, I suppose. He's going to get his ultimate popped, get pretty much juiced back up to full HP, but now he's pretty much out of gas, hit with the smoke, and he's going to fall. Love it. Oh, actually gets to the miscoil deny, and now the rotations are coming in a big fashion. Flea taking tower shots, will go down. And up top, Snowman onto the Ember Spirit, sneaking, hit with the X marks. The damage is going to come in from Wee, coming in from the back. He has a lot of March, but not much Laser Missile. Still be deployed towards Sneaking with the right clicks there. He'll get into the trees and actually TP out of here. Sneaking's fine again. And now it's on to CCNC, who's going to get X marked. He has another Spirit to jump to soon. And he will do just that off to the side, but he has no TP mana now. So I guess right now it's how do I deny myself? How do I create as much space as possible? Because he's not gonna get back home easily, especially when his escape path is being cut off by TPs and Abaddons and Crystal Maidens and frickin' Kunkkas and missiles also. You gotta remember missiles, so yeah, that's space created, I guess, but still not a great outcome for IsGG, but still a lot better than I thought since Sneaking was able to get away.
Huge purification coming out from Snake King, and kind of the benefit you don't really overestimate an Omni Knight's damage potential at this point in the game, but he did have the 1v1. He's level 10, or he's level 8 here, 10 minutes in, and 300 pure damage, nothing to scoff at, and hits a big nuke, basically backs off any hope but Thunderbirds had of turning that. He's able to make it out. Unfortunately, CCNC ends up dying. But Snake King did pop the time lapse earlier in the lane, so you mentioned not having detection. Yeah, probably a optimistic call, but if they do hit the root there, root a lot stronger than it once was, maybe they get the kill on Rezo. Either way, Snake King, he's gonna get torrented up. Pretty tanky though at this point. Pops the first purification. He will get the repel off, and a big chaotic offering gonna come out onto 3. But really, do they have the follow up with Moon Meander behind, keeping Misery up and safe? Resolution pressing forward onto the Stan King. The Guardian Angel will be there. The Shikuchi just short of killing off the Warlock, and Rezo is gonna be forced out to the west. He gets purified up on the Warlock as well, and now Rezo, he's gonna have to make his way out as a lot expended from both sides, but no kills going to be found, no blood spilled. Chaotic offering though, probably the biggest thing lost. Oh, as I spoke probably a little too soon. Rezo, he's going to get rooted up. He does end up getting off the time-lapse Shikuchi and will make it out of the range of a sentry. Moon is nearby as well, and Rezo going to be able to make it out back to safety.
Ooh, CCNC a little bit too trigger happy there with his chains. Otherwise, he did a little bit more damage to the Weaver. It was definitely very close. But for IsGG, they are able to get out of there with no casualties. Really fortunate for them given how that actually started. Maybe not the ideal usage of Chaotic Offering there, but hey, it's no harm, no foul. They're going to be able to keep moving forward, but bottom lane Sneaking. They get teleported upon. He'll repel himself, get out of there. Wee has his travels, and he has the maxed out March. He just went for the farming build initially. And now for IsGG is really where you want to have a mega farmed Ember Spirit to hunt down that Tinker, but unfortunately he is not doing too hot. It seemed like CCNC was doing a lot better than his net worth right now would indicate, but 3,000 net worth, that is not impressive in the standing of this game.
Yeah, even Yawar has surpassed him at this point. So he spent a lot of time, fighting and skirmishing, and he did die behind the tier 2 in the mid lane. So that's obviously cost him. I mean, if you look at him in the way of CS, he's only got 43 here, 12 minutes in. So he's averaging about 3 CS a minute, 3 to 4 CS a minute, which is certainly not ideal. Kosaksa gonna get caught out, goes for the TP, and looks like he'll make it. TP is really strong in this game thus far. Both teams a little bit disabled light. Especially TP with the repel behind it for IsGG. But Thunderbirds, they'll be the ones to make it out this time. Yawar, though, he's recovered decently here. 4,600 net worth, does go for the Midas. Overall, still not a great early game for the Ursa, but he's not entirely out of it yet.
Yeah, the Ember Spirit just needs a little bit of time. And Yawar will have that Midas acceleration, as you mentioned. Unfortunately, I don't really know if that's going to be in the game plan for CCNC. If you miss this kind of early game damage period as the Ember Spirit, it is generally pretty difficult to get back into a position where you're really able to be dominant. We all know what happens if an Ember Spirit starts snowballing out of control. This is definitely not one of those games. And I don't even know if last time I saw a Midas Ember Spirit, it does seem like if he's gonna get one ever, it's it's got to be in this game because you need an answer to that Tinker, and if your Ember Spirit's not going to do it, then no one's going to do it until Yawar picks up Blink Abyssal, which even then is a sketchy way of handling that Tinker. They're going to look for Wii soon. He's teleporting out, and they arrive a little bit too late. It does feel like ISGG right now are kind of making all the necessary movements, but they're just too far behind to actually get anything done with it. And in the meantime, mid lane, bottom lane, both being pressured by Thunderbirds.
Yeah, they had a ward behind the tier 1. It may just have been out of the range of the TP of Wii, but just odd to see them not jump there, especially with the repelled up CC. More than likely, they didn't actually have vision of him, else I don't see a reason for them not to go in. But yeah, as you mentioned, I mean, this 14-minute mark, this is where Ember is almost at his strongest, you know, at least for the first 25 minutes. So for him not to be farming heroes, he's going to have a difficult time farming elsewhere, especially since they have no stacks prepared for him. Torrent, though, blind, is going to connect for Saksa onto the former Mineski Fangay / romantic girl / Francis Lee, and he'll find himself a nice solo kill. Top lane will accelerate his progression a little bit into this one. CCNC, he's going to back out top lane here, and Yawar, he is going to deal with the push that you were touching upon that's happening in bottom lane. You are forced to pop the Enrage as just the typical Tinker combo, going to bring him down to about half HP.
This is not a winning game state here for SGG. They need to make something happen, and that includes not getting heroes killed off towards top. That was a fail boat, but that's fine since they don't really need to get kills right now with Thunderbirds. They just have to keep SGG on their toes and keep splitting up the map. SGG, they are weaker right now. They have to group up, and no one's really dealing with what's going on in bottom lane. Yawar tried, didn't really work out, and now Moon is working with that power farming Abaddon build. Pretty standard stuff nowadays, but still it's going to be that Midas into that Radiance. Mischance up against Ursa is an absolute nightmare for him, and no one is stopping Moon. They're barely getting anything done up towards top, and this is so many heroes from SGG camping up here because they have to. They're not getting anything done. Stanking actually being tracked by Bugs. A couple more shots from Rezo is going to get the kill. He'll scurry himself up to the north where he has a lot of cover. CCNC gets a Purification, gets a Repel, and he will be able to jump away. But SGG, if they had a Warlock right now, they'd be more than happy to make this play. They get a really nice smoke screen, though. That's going to kill off the CM with the Guardian Angel there as well. They'll start clawing down. Saksa, Rum, not going to save him. Needs to drink more than that. That's actually a pretty good turnaround from SGG, set up by Flea, but they have to watch out now because Rezo is charging forward, looking for Yawar. Blink Dagger soon with the Purification there. He should be A-okay, especially when Stan King arrives. They're going to jump back in. For Moon, they see Resolution as well. There comes the Golem onto the Bug. They'll squish him, and Moon, he's going to pop his ultimate, try to get a little bit of distance, but I'm not really sure if that's in the cards right now. CCNC is blocking his path. Moon's got to get out of there somehow. It's not going to be in a straight line. It will be through the grave. Wee's going to return, but SGG make a huge turnaround. Yeah. And that was all Ricky right there, and they were maybe not even done yet. Yawar going to blink forward, looking for Saksa, has some help now from the Ricky, gets a little bit of smoke on the deck, and that'll help the Ursa solidify another kill, and over in top while sneaking gets cheesed out by Wee. With that fresh Blink Dagger, Tinker at least going to get something for his team, but man, that was some team fight for his GG.
Yeah, it almost feels like a deviation from the game plan by Thunderbirds. I mean, you set up the lanes knowing that if you give Omni Knight the 1v1, you don't really care that he has levels because his whole purpose in the game is to enable the Ember Spirit and the Ursa, and they successfully shut down the Ember Spirit and the Ursa. And I guess they just felt so far ahead there that they could fight 5-on-5, but that's the only time where Ember and Ursa are going to be effective this far behind is when it's a 5-on-5 scenario and your over-leveled Omni Knight can assist them. So it feels a little odd to me as like Thunderbirds were moving around the map very nicely and kind of dragging around SGG, pushing in top lane, pushing in bottom lane simultaneously, and then the first full 5-on-5 engagement they take goes very poorly for them. I mean, they're still in a great state. Like Tinker's still the highest level in the game, and Rezo and Abaddon, you know, not far behind Yawar and Snaking, but that just gave the Ursa and the Ember Spirit a big breath of life.
It's Blink Dagger Midas now up on the Ursa with even more gank power on the way. It looks like he's going to start building up into a little bit of invis action along with his Ricky. We got some invis gankers up in here, and for right now they're going to smoke up and go straight towards Roche. This should be something that Thunderbirds are aware of. They've been pushing this bottom lane pretty freely thus far, and should be a takedown on this tower, but Sneaking's presenting over towards mid lane. It's not really something you do if you're playing normally. No Roshan, gotta remain not suspicious, but sneaking will draw a couple of heroes over towards mid. That means they're going mid, that means they're not going towards Roshan. That's you are now with the double life. Still, the game state to the net worth lead, technically in favor of Thunderbirds. They've been taking down the towers. They've been farming pretty well, especially with Wee on his Tinker. But as you said, it's going to be IzGG showing a little bit of a kick here in this mid game, and in another 14 seconds, who knows what's going to happen when another Warlock rock is ready. Right now, sneaking actually is going to be jumped. Here comes a torrent, which will be a little bit off. They kind of have to throw it out there because of repel, and they won't do that much. He also has a hood, so sneaking is like double magic immune, although he's going to take a big laser. Turnaround now here, though, but it's only onto Moon, and that is not the hero you want. The boat is going to do pretty much nothing, except for apply a little bit of rum, but now here comes Yawar, and the jump in from CCNC. Immediately the Tinker is down. CCNC taking a beating with the Purification. He will be just fine. Misery gonna drop his ultimate, which will drive everyone back, but it will not get any kills. And somehow IzGG with AoE magic damage kill off the Tinker. Now we're on to Moon, which Yawar is gonna take care of. CCNC's jumping in with the Ursa, maxed out Earth Shock of all things onto like 3 heroes. You don't expect that, but man, does it work. And out towards top lane, Rezo gonna get into a little bit of a skirmish here with sneaking.
Yeah, not expecting the Diffusal Blade.
Yeah, and Flea is going to arrive with a little bit of smoke, but already the Shikuchi is used, and sneaking gets purged again. He'll fall, but CCNC has arrived. For what? There's no damage. He's out of mana. Another Shikuchi looking for that Ricky resolution, but he's going to just purge up CCNC. At least he'll have a shrine. Got to the safety of that, but he has no true sight. So Rezo is going to scurry away. But now IzGG off that team fight. Finally in this game with, was a little bit of a gold lead. Not anymore, though.
Yeah, Rezo chose to push top lane and not come to that mid lane fight, and although I love his build in this game, I mean, it's good against the Guardian Angel, it's good against the Flame Guard of the Ember Spirit, he's just not really a building hitter just yet, so he doesn't get all that much done in the top lane, chooses not to go to the fight mid. I think Thunderbirds made a really good decision after the Tinker died to just back out and get themselves out away from any further danger. Unfortunately, you are able to blink again and find Moon on the back end, but I think that was more the playstyle they were anticipating earlier on, is to kind of split up the map and take the picks where they can. It's clear that IzGG are strongest as 5, and they are able to take another, beneficial engagement towards the mid lane where there really wasn't any trade. The other big thing to talk about there is that Rezo does just get the kill on Snaking. That's a nice solo kill, a hero that's very high level and worth a lot. So Rezo, he skyrockets right up the net worth chart, but he's down 3 diffusal charges almost immediately after buying it, and those charges are going to be very effective every time they're used.
And the answer from IzGG as far as dealing with that Weaver, another one is coming up soon. Yawar's got that Shadow Blade now and is going to be going towards that Basher. It's not something you really want to rely on in order to kill off a Weaver, but hey, it's another tool in the arsenal, and he's actually going to get into the enemy woods right now. See Wee TP out and reveal himself to try to kill off a couple of these golems. He needs some backup, Yawar. He's going to have some coming in. They're a little bit slow on the intake as they're kind of distracted by resolution. Repel goes onto Yawar, sneaking out Purify himself. Lots of damage done to the bug. They can't track him successfully. Not enough CC here. Not enough CCNC here either with the chains, so yeah, not really going to do all that much now, but it is going to reveal the Shadow Blade of Yawar. It doesn't seem like... Oh, actually, Thunderbirds are going to have a perfect read on this. Sentry is there. Yawar is going to wander right through it. There's no sentries back here, I guess. They're going in really deep, man. They really are itching to use this golem, but there's no opportunity to do so.
And it's just a good show of adaptation from Thunderbirds. It's, a case of fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. They just realized that they can't just 5-man against them right now. So Moon and Rezo top lane were pushing in the tower. They finish it off. Rezo makes his way down bottom. Moon has a Midas, and he's only...
Oh, they're going to chain 2 into the smoke screen, and that's immediately Tinker down. Saxa is chained up to his entire creep wave. He'll shrine once, try to get to the other one, but CCNC is right on his ass with a couple of extra heroes. Purification is there. It's a third hero picked off by IzGG. Thunderbirds, they saw a Ricky. They thought it was a target, and they got baited hard. Because Ricky has Smokescreen, and Smokescreen is absolutely ridiculous. That's tier 2, and now high ground? Are you kidding me? Wee's going to have to buy back into this game. He does not have an Ags, but he still is a Tinker, so he'll be able to defend. I mean, I sure hope, Thunderbirds, that top lane tower was worth it. I hope Moon Meander has some sort of game plan here, because he is going toe-to-toe with CCNC and soon to be a lot of IzGG heroes. He's going to get his ultimate popped in a less than ideal situation. Chains will interrupt the TP out. He has no backup nearby. He is super dead. 14 to 10, and IsGG are bringing it back hard.
He was 25 gold from Relic at death there. Loses 284. So pretty big death, because that's a full Radiance. He does have the recipe on his person, so... And that's why he didn't come to the last few fights, is that he just wanted to desperately get that last. And now Yawar mid lane finds Saxa. Misery gets the Frostbite up. It'll purge it with the Enrage and just walk away. So definitely worth the wee buyback there, because you don't give an Ursa a free tier 3. He's not a good hero at hitting buildings, and neither is Ember Spirit. So you absolutely have to buy back there in order to force them, to have to Rax later on. But yeah, I mean, IsGG just really playing well around each other. This Omni Knight enabling the cores. Yawar with the back off to the jungle and the Midas pickup. He's now actually somewhat of a threat in this game, and they just haven't had the answer yet with, trying to split push. This Tinker has been killed off early. Kunkka and Abaddon just haven't been positioned well enough behind him, or even present at the fight in the case of Moon, trying to pick up his Radiance to save their cores from dying early and quickly.
It does seem like Wee is perhaps overestimating his own Blink Dagger, underestimating the blinks and mobility of the enemy side. Tinker really should not be caught in a smokescreen in a heads-up fight like that. He should be way, way, way in the back, especially since he has a freaking Aether Lens. Like, he has the range. He can't afford to cast at a distance and keep himself safe. You lose Tinker first thing, and you lose the vast majority of your team fight there. Smoke kind of worked. Yawar missed it, unfortunately for him. Not really sure what they're planning on doing with an Omni Knight, Riki, and a Warlock, but they're going to make a move anyway. 10 seconds left before they can actually fight, and they'll run to heroes that are actually fight ready. TP coming in. It's onto Wee. He has backup nearby, but he's going to get dropped super low, super quickly. Where's the boat? It's coming in, but it's too late. He's already dead. They're going to bring in Resolution. Stanking's going to turn around, drop his rock, stun up a couple of heroes, chains down onto Resolution. He will have time lapse available, and he should be just fine to back out of here. CCNC, though, he has a double damage rune. Will get repelled. Now here comes Yawar. Straight onto the poor CM. Gets a first hit bash as well. And they've actually isolated Resolution in the smoke still. Is going to fall. Moon's going to try to teleport out of there. Yawar is unable to get close enough to try to roll for the bash. It's going to be Moon to survive, but everyone else on Thunderbirds dead, as we did not expect those heroes to be there. And, I didn't expect them to be able to kill off a Tinker like that.
This is pretty incredible at this point. The teamfight execution simply has just been better from IsGG's side, and they're finding the right engagements, even walking uphill into a shrine there, and Wee doesn't get the immediate blink off, and it looks like he had a fraction of a second there, but just not expecting the enemy to be nearby, and he gets dropped early, and he's been, it feels like, almost the first one to die in almost every single fight, and that is a major, the vast majority of their damage in these fights getting taken out immediately. So yeah, Abba, Kunkka, Weaver, they can survive, but if they don't have enough output with an Omni Knight on the other side and a Warlock, you're not killing anyone off, and that's just been the struggle for Thunderbirds. They do finally get the Radiance on Moon, so this will help a lot to at least keep one lane pushed out, and therefore make it a little bit more difficult for IsGD to find the jumps. Really, when you're ahead like this, you want to keep vision in your control and continue to find good jumps in the team fights. But T-Birds, they feel like this is a bit of a spike in power with the Radiance pickup on the Abaddon. They've got a Pike as well on Resolution. So 2 Force Staffs, one on Misery, one on the Weaver for the smoke screen. And now they're going to look to fight here. They get the Sentry up down on the high ground. They do see the Riki. They'll Frostbite him up. He'll be an easy kill, but not exactly who they're looking for with a big smoke movement like this. Either way, it does buy them a bit of space. They can now push out a lane. As you see, mid pushing in. Moon can push out top or mid. And that'll give them a little bit of space to get down some wards here. They did get the one on the cliff right before the kill.
I do think this Hurricane Pike was a Dragonlance for a long time. Just recently added that Force Staff component in, and your Weaver is not supposed to be stuck in searing chains in Ricky's smoke. That is just a bad place for any hero. That right clicks 2B sneaking. He'll be fine up towards top lane. This tower will fall. Thunderbirds, they have themselves a little bit of a pick off there, and as long as Wee is able to handle those lanes with, as long as he's able to also keep himself safe, then the Thunderbirds still are working with a lot of power, despite the lead that they once had and now do not have, despite the lead that IsGG are controlling. Thunderbirds still have this chain stun combo, a lot of heroes that are difficult to pin down. So they still have the ability to bring this back. If they're able to keep Wee at arm's length, which is going to be a difficult task. They are going to find, though, IsGG split up. Yawar into Resolution. Well, there is Ember Spirit Remnant here, so Resolution is going to pick a 2v1 instead of just a 1v1 as he would really like, and there's no true sight there, unfortunately. They will find Stanking, but a rock drops onto 3, and Yuar's going to shred Misery again. Can't get a single spell off. Smoke drops in the middle. Not going to do a hell of a lot, but they are going to throw the boat in. That's going to stop the Omnite. Torrent is great onto Yuar and CCNC, but it is going to be Moon Meander in the middle of things. He's going to get his ultimate popped rather early as CCNC can deploy the Arctic Blast, slow down Moon Meander just a touch, and get on top of this Abaddon. They'll lose Stanking, but it's a Warlock who already dropped his ultimate. Nobody cares about that. Resolution, he's going to be one of the few remaining heroes still in this fight, but Thunderbirds, they lose 3, and so maybe they'll be able to cheese out one more with a lot of missiles coming in. CCNC going to dodge it with Repel there as well. Wee is going to do a lot of damage, and hopefully for Resolution to clean things up, he's going to jump in towards the Ember Spirit. A little bit of a dodge there. Gets Purified, gets bashed, and Resolution is going to drop. You can't blame him for that one. You cannot. But man, is GG Yuar. He is really good at this basher.
Yep, and no time lapse, no Hurricane Pike to help Resolution there, and as you mentioned, you can't really blame him for going in there off the back of that fight. They just didn't really get enough out of it, out of the first Radiance of Moon Meander, first fight with Radiance. Now Snake King has one in response, and you can just see how anxious G&G are to take these full-scale engagements.
Oh,
now
no.
you are, speaking of which, is going to find Saxa, smokescreen and keep anyone from re-engaging. Yuar comes in with the Silver Edge, and he breaks Moon. He does not get the borrowed time off. He doesn't realize he was broken at that point. Meanwhile, CCNC finds Wee in the bottom lane. But what I was going to say is Yuar, he gets found out by Resolution near the shrine, and immediately CCNC is back to his Remnant looking for a fight. They drop down a sentry. Everyone runs away to the south, and they get a 3-man rock from the high ground to start things off. So couldn't have gone any better for ISGG. They've just been constantly out-executing in the team fights, and you know, obviously a big factor in that is just how farmed Snake King is and how much he's been able to do in terms of enabling his cores. Had that pipe for the last 2 full team fights, now has a Radiance, so he's going to be able to answer Moon's Radiance, at least to keep the lanes out on Yuar. He's going to go in mid lane, look for Misery. X keeps him back. Repel was a little bit late, but he's still just going to run at the CM. The Radiance will burn her down, and now onto the buildings they go. X is there with the Torrent, will catch a couple. But still, eating away on the buildings. Pipe is going to be popped up, repelled there from Snake King. And under the root, Resolution just kind of helpless. They will finally get their Tinker back to get the march going, and this will make the push very difficult, even with the Aegis. Now jump forward from CCNC, Bolt goes out. It's pretty much entirely defensive, doesn't connect on anything. CCNC looking to take out Moon, who will end up popping the borrowed time. Pretty much fuels the full, but Yuar on the backlines with the Aegis, looking to bring one down. He is able to. That's Saxa, who will buy back immediately. Resolution takes a couple of remnants, is able to Shuchi out to the east, and now he will time lapse back in, gets the Diffusal off on the Flame Guard, but they get the smoke screen to keep the Ember Spirit safe. Now jumping forward, Guardian's Angel is there, and Yuar bash again. Baiting in the Weaver. Misery gonna go for the YOLO play with the freezing field. He gets the Aegis and a couple of kills, but still, Yuar is back up in infighting shape. Resolution after the buyback looking to hunt down more. Stan King goes for the TP out. Snake King, and Snake King will die. But the bash again from Yuar with the Enrage. That's a dieback for Resolution. 90 seconds on the sidelines. Not going to be able to allow Yuar to Rax here as Wee is still up, but it is a devastating blow as a game that was in the favor at one point of Thunderbirds is now 16, almost 17k net worth lead for the Radiant side.
ISGG's movements in these fights is absolutely perfect. Moon is actually going to run into Yuar. That is not a place where an Abaddon wants to be. Even with that ultimate, he's going to use it first thing, which means Yuar knows that something must be up. He's going to back off. He can actually just turn around and kill Moon. No, he's going to play the safe role and is going to back off. But so many times in that fight, like poking at the high ground, is GG feigning their retreat, right? Like they back off with a couple of heroes, knowing that they have heals from Stan King, they have heals from Sneaking, and if they just buy time, they'll be able to get another kind of cycle of damage off, another set of remnants and more chains, more sleight of fist, another couple seconds for the Ursa to wait for his attack combo to be up, more blink strikes and smoke screens for Ricky, and Thunderbirds, it seems like every single time, took it hook, line, and sinker because they're like, oh, you know, we did a little bit of damage. They're trying to run away now. Let's go chase after them. But ISGG were just baiting the entire time because of how much sustain they have, and Thunderbirds are just constantly underestimating it. I'm not really sure what Sax is doing up here. He's luckily not going to get picked off. And fortunately for Thunderbirds, they're able to keep the Tinker alive enough so that they don't lose any racks, which is going to be absolutely huge here since they're so far behind. But ISGG, the way they're playing is just so much superior than how Thunderbirds are playing out this game. Saxa gonna deploy the boat, and he's actually in a little bit of trouble. Is there remnant chains, anything? No? Okay. He's fine. Everyone from Thunderbirds, though, they are getting picked off pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, Wee completes up the Ags here. He's still nowhere near where he'd like to be in this game. He's basically farming the creeps that come up to his base, trying to get some space out in the lane's bottom. But Ags just doesn't seem like the item, and I'm hard-pressed to find a single item that he could have picked up instead of it that would win him the game here. But, you know, with Snake King behind all his heroes and all his cores, and even going for an Octarine core now to reduce that repel cooldown, it just feels like Laser is just not the game or the fight-winning item or spell. And a lot of damage is coming from, you know, the magic damage sources on their side as well, with the Shivas and the, you know, full magic kit of CCNC. So very difficult game at this point for Thunderbirds. I mean, their two supports are absolutely dirt poor. Misery does end up picking up a Ghost Scepter, so easily the best thing they did in that fight was the Misery Force Staff Freezing Field. So maybe he's able to recreate that magic. But aside from that, game is hard at the very least for Thunderbirds. They will throw the Blind Torrent out. Repel is there for Snake King. CCNC has a Remnant down. He's going to Remnant in and blink forward, finds a two-man chain, gets a slide off, and the Spirits. They won't be able to kill off Wee, who does end up TPing out. They won't get anything. Well, we see how scared they're playing. Now down to the south, they will find Rezo inside the smoke, but he's able to force himself away. Omni Knight in the Frostbite, but Rezo, he's just trying to run. Purification forces him to time-lapse down to the south. No one nearby to punish him for it just yet. But now pressing forward to the east. They are going to end up losing Yawara, who gets a little bit too aggressive. Now Rezo back in. Chaotic Offering going to keep him down for a second. He doesn't have the time-lapse. Will force forward. Nice blink from CCNC, though, and they find him under the sentry. Ricky found out on the north, though. Thunderbirds, not the healthiest, but they do have the Shrine and Wee's TP in. Moon Meander pressing forward, trying to cancel any blinks. And now Wee gonna jump forward. They do find the X on Stan King. Stan King will be the back-end consolation prize for them. They do end up losing Resolution again, but Yawara just pressing forward a little bit too brazenly in that fight. It is gonna end up getting punished, and Thunderbirds finally find something quasi-beneficial. They'll take back about 1,500 net worth overall, but still a gargantuan lead for the Radiant.
And it's just Yawara getting a little bit too confident there. The success of the Ursa has been a lot due to sneaking and being able to constantly drop those repels and heals on the Ursa. Even a couple of Guardian Angels just used to keep this Ursa at fit fighting shape and getting all the way down to the low ground, where his allies are still up top on the hill fighting. And obviously there's no help coming there for the Ursa, so getting a little bit too overconfident is going to cost ISGG quite a bit. And we also see something else going on. It's the fact that Abaddon, his build, is really sick up against that Ursa. They had the Weaver in the smoke screen with Ursa on top of them. 9 times out of 10, that's a kill. Until you have Mischance from Evasion, you have the Solar Crest being applied to the Weaver as well, and Ursa just can't hit him. So Ursa may have the damage to kill out the Weaver if he rolls lucky, but he will have to be very lucky. He at least has an Abyssal Blade now, so Blink Abyssal definitely a possibility, and now they're going to try to go for Kunkka. Not going to happen. No stuns here between a Riki and an Omni Knight. But Thunderbirds, they're showing some signs of life. It just does require, though, they split up and kind of separate Sneaking from the rest of his allies.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it in the draft screen. Easily the hardest thing that is going to face ISGG in this game is to hit buildings, especially against a Tinker. So that kind of recognition in the last pick for Thunderbirds helps them out here and in their ability to defend high ground. And they're still behind, so maybe they want to consider fighting this next Roche. That could be just the last piece of the puzzle for ISGG here. And there still is a Dire Shrine available, but it does at the same time feel like with Boat, Freezing Field, and the Tinker's Toolkit, that Thunderbirds, really their best chance may just be in their own base. They will TP over Resolution under the cover of Shikuchi towards that Roche pit, so they're well aware that, that ISGG are looking to get this Roche to finish up the game, but we'll see if they actually opt to fight it.
Weaver's able to pick up pretty substantial item here in this Orchid. The Ember Spirit, definitely a hero that needs to be able to cast the spells and doesn't have any good answers to it. If you slap that on an Omni Knight, he has no answers right now in order to get that off of him. So It's a potentially huge pickup for this Weaver. And of course, it's going to build into that extra damage component later on. So this Weaver is starting to hit pretty hard, and he just needs to make sure that he doesn't get kind of cheesily picked off. Speaking of cheesy pickoffs, Misery is going to into Moon, or into CCNC with Moon, but Yuar's going to come in. Here comes the boat. It's going to once again be a failed boat, but the laser's going to start to bounce through. The Chaotic Offering has already been used. And that's actually pretty good for Thunderbirds, all things considered. They're still firing the missiles thanks to the tracking from the Weaver bugs. And that's a big ultimate from ISGG down the tubes for very little, if anything.
It's a big element of their fight around the pit as well, but it just, with the Ursa, it just feels like they may not be able to react in time here. So they drop a Chaotic Offering, but still, they get what they came for ISGG, so they can just wait out the cooldown while they have the Aegis. Snake King can help push in the one lane, CCNC can deal with the others with his Maelstrom and his Boots of Travel. So at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, Thunderbirds, they don't lose too much there, but they just push in bottom lane. That's really all they get is 50% of that tier 3 damage.
We've been pushing out these waves pretty reliably and starting to build up some serious bulk. Aghanim Scepter, of course, already completed. Now Bloodstone as well. So, picking off Wii in a cheesy fashion seems like that's going to be harder and harder to do as this lane progresses. And this Tinker pick just by itself is keeping Thunderbirds rather safe, as ISGG don't really have the best clearing. Ursa doesn't really do that all that well. Ember Spirit, now that he has the Maelstrom, definitely much better at it, but someone has to deal with that split push, and CCNC is going to be that one to be pulled back every single time. A couple of heroes converging now into the Radiant jungle. Sentry Observer dropped, CCNC completely spotted. Get him killed off. Saxa looking for a torrent, will throw it out and land it. Now jump in for the Frostbite. The silence is on CCNC, and with the laser coming in, that's going to be an Ember Spirit picked off. First pick-off Thunderbirds have gotten in a very long time.
That's the best reveal they could have gotten for Resolution's Orchid there. And, with the lane already in a convenient position, they'll at least force his buyback, or try to. So actually a very, not at all an inconsequential pick-off. Resolution going to force forward. He is X'd up, trying to take out the tier 3. Will end up time-lapsing back. You are now going to jump forward looking for Moon, but as you mentioned, Moon has many ways to deal with the right clicks from this Ursa. Torrent is going to connect onto Snake King. Now jump forward from Flea, and he will drop down the smoke screen again. Resolution up to the high ground. He's going to be X'd back, and they will get the tier 3. So perhaps this allows them to go for Shrines, where ISGG really don't want to have to buy back on their Ember Spirit. One thing I'm interested to see, just on a side note here, is the level 25 talent choice from CCNC. We almost never see the +2 seconds on the steering change, but I don't know, in this matchup versus the Weaver, I feel like it might actually be worth it.
It seems like this is the only time it's going to be worth it. You are, though, going to jump in. Moon really wants to finish off that Shrine, and he will get it, but at what cost? Here comes the Golem. It's going to drop on pretty much everyone. The boat is going to be thrown out. Rum applied to everyone from the Dire side, but they're not dealing with UR just yet. BKB is going to start charging in. Off to the south, Resolution is going to peel away, and it seems like everyone's just trying to run for their lives. Mostly Misery versus that Ursa, but the BKB is running out. UR now going to get hit with the X marks. He has Sneaking to give him a little bit of help here, and actually no one dies. So, yeah, Rock and Golem, Rock and Boat, rather, the two big teamfight ultimates in close quarters, but essentially end up canceling each other out.
Yeah, and, as the game drags on, this has always been an issue with Ursa, and more Force Staffs come out, more mobility items, Ghost Scepters. It just becomes harder and harder for him to stick on the target, especially when Snake King was a little bit far behind the engagement there, even though he had his own BKB, just not quite enabled as he's been used to in the game thus far, and everyone kind of able to make it out alive, maybe not unscathed, but certainly alive for Thunderbirds. So this these last few happenstances is certainly very beneficial for the Thunderbird side. And CCZ, he does opt for the 20% CDR. I mean, it's always going to be great on Ember, especially with the Shivas on top of the regular bots, and he will have more searing chains to throw out.
Oh, they caught UR over in the mid lane. He'll lose all of his mana. Still has that double life, so he'll be able to back off again thanks to the help from Sneaking. Mana issues on Ursa. These are things you don't really expect to have happen until there's a Diffusal Blade on the Weaver.
Yeah, UR will have to shrine up for it, and they still have a minute or so on this Aegis, but it looks like Thunderbirds have achieved, what they wanted to. Just by killing CCNC with the reveal of that Orchid, it pretty much took the entirety of the duration of that Aegis. and therefore they won't have that for the high ground push. We're going to deal with bottom lane, force CCNC to back, and that'll mean that no push is immediately impending from the ISGG side. So Thunderbirds definitely showing a fighting chance in this game. I mean, with the ability to flash farm that he has almost, you know, become at equal to the Ursa and Omni here. So that's definitely a bit of a concerning cause now. Resolution in bottom lane. Looking to find something, we'll just throw out the bugs and back himself away.
We have two really nice items now purchased by the ISGG side. Two same Lotus Orbs, which will be one of Ember's few tools up against that Weaver and his Orchid, so just being able to slap that on himself. And the Omni Knight can do that to one of his allies, put the Repel on the other, and, you know, really juggle his safety. Really big item versus that Weaver, but also, you know, pretty good versus the Kunkka, versus the Crystal Maiden. You could do some pretty silly stuff if the Tinker targets you with the laser, who knows. Getting rid of that blind also not too bad either. So these fat items are starting to come up for both sides, but it does seem like this game just looked like a little bit of a throne game for Thunderbirds. Has kind of stabilized. A 12k deficit, 44 minutes in the game, is definitely not something that they cannot recover from. They just need to play very carefully, and they have been playing a lot more carefully since they've, you know, stopped dropping those deaths that happened like at 25 minutes.
Yeah, definitely been playing or executing a little bit better. Their decision making has been good in the way they split the map, but I mean, overall they've been outplayed in this game. It just feels like the draft is what carries them to this point. But Yawar, though, you may finally get caught out here. Moonmeander does have the gem on his person. They get an X off onto Yawar. He doesn't opt to pop his BKB. Will do so now. And support is somewhat nearby as Snake King going to rotate in as well. We'll see if Thunderbirds continue to press forward. Moonmeander, he's not really feeling any sort of threat here. Snake King will get the cheese off and able to purge with the Lotus Orb, but he still ends up going down to the right click. Yawar, he's in a lot of trouble, completely isolated out. The laser will finish him off. And Yawar just caught out in no man's land, down for 95 seconds, no buyback. Bottom lane is pushing in. They can make their way down there. They're a pretty mobile lineup overall. Moon will deal with mid. Wee's going to join him for just a moment. Resolution down towards the bottom lane. Does have the Orchid for CCNC here. He does have a Lotus Orb of his own, though, and CCNC will pop it and should be able to make it away to safety. Still, though, the wave in a good position here for Thunderbirds, as 70 seconds on the sideline, roughly, with no Omni Knight and no Ursa.
I mean, as good as Lotus Orb is, not having buyback 45 minutes in the game is going to be really costly. Still a minute of downtime for Thunderbirds. Just go to town on these structures, and Resolution with the Bloodthorn has even more damage to do so. CCNC doing what he can to hold over in mid, and once again, he'll bounce out of there and he'll be just fine, but the push of the tier 2 tower in the mid lane opens the door now for Thunderbirds to look at a 2-Rax lead, as they're going to go to work on bottom. Stan King doesn't even have his ultimate, so what can a Warlock do except for throw bonds and hope that no one is going to call his bluff? He will do just that, and he'll do pretty much nothing. That's 1 Rax taken in 30 seconds. This tier 3, definitely a viable pickup here for Thunderbirds. They're now going to equalize that disadvantage. Again, it's pretty easy for them to do so with the heroes that they have. 15k, 14k disadvantage, not a big deal, as it's now going to go straight to 0. CCNC going to get a pretty nice Shiva's Guard with this smoke screen on top of everyone as well. They'll try to drive him back. The boat will almost connect onto the Riki. Space creation techniques from GG just to try to buy a little bit of time. Moon is going to be kind of left behind by the rest of his squad, but Ursa and Omni's arrival is a little bit slow incoming, and CCNC is getting really far ahead. Gotta be careful, still with no Warlock Rock. Thunderbirds will group up and will retreat as a team. They take down the tier 3, but not the Rax, so it is only 1 Rax advantage for Thunderbirds. Definitely not something that ISGG cannot handle. But with the Tinker on Thunderbirds, yeah, the map has opened up a lot more now.
Yeah, I mean, CCNC can deal with this lane, but still, yeah, I mean, you touched on the key point, is that the Tinker's on the opposite side. So although he can push out waves on paper, yeah, Hex top lane, they're going to get the silence off as well, and they will be able to refresh the Hex with Wheeze, blink forward and rearm, and that's going to be another big kill, another hero down with no buyback here for the Radiant squad. And Thunderbirds, they brought this game back to parity in terms of net worth. They even have a slight lead on their side. They've got tier 3 in mid lane. The melee Rax hasn't even fully regened yet. And they do have that full bottom lane now, all shrines down. And CCNC, he's dead for 75 seconds. So even though they don't know that at this point, they're going to find out soon. And Thunderbirds may just be able to close this one out.
Somehow, CM with no Midas is able to pick up another sheep stick. Still, that Lotus Orb is going to be pretty nice. The repel from sneaking is a necessity at this stage, but with no Ember Spirit, what the hell are they going to do? They're going to drop the ultimate into 4 from the Warlock. It's really good, does a lot of damage onto the Weaver, but he'll time-lapse it all the way back. He'll be perfectly fine. Misery is going to channel his ultimate for a little while. The Ursa, he's going to be hexed up in the front, and he needs some help desperately, but it looks like it's too late. He'll put up his ultimate, but there's no help coming to him. He's down. At least he got enough gold for buyback. We's going to jump in, gets another sheep stick off on the Omni Knight. More missiles to follow. Sneaky will barely purify himself in time. Ursa forced to buy out, but it's one hero less now for SGG as they lost their smoke screen. That's going to be 2 racks in favor of Thunderbirds. And now at the 9k advantage is GG. There's a couple of sloppy plays. Having no buybacks at this point in time. A big mistake from the Radiant.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 cores that all game had an Omni Knight behind them just didn't end up having one for a split second. And Thunderbirds, credit to them. They capitalize on both. One in the river on Yawar and one in the top lane on Ember Spirit. So Thunderbirds, I mean, well within reach is this game for them now. I mean, you look at the buyback scenario for the Radiant, and Snaking's the only one who currently has it. The only other hero close is the Warlock, and his buyback's entirely inconsequential, even if he does end up getting it. So, credit to the draft more than anything, but the last couple of plays that Thunderbirds have made have, translated into winning them the game, essentially getting these 2 lanes of racks. So, it's going to be very difficult now for SGG to come back from this. Perhaps their one hope is to fight around the pit. If Thunderbirds give them that opening.
They absolutely need Yawar and Sneaking to be tag teaming the entire time. If Ursa is sheeped up a single time, the fight from SGG pretty much goes to shit. They are going to face up against an Aegis and a Cheese shortly. Resolution with either one of those is going to be almost impossible for SGG to handle. If he's going to decide to grab both, I have no idea what SGG are going to do to kill off this Weaver this many times. They need to, kind of get another cheesy pick off. We got to look towards that 25-minute phase where Thunderbirds are really sloppy, except I don't think Thunderbirds are going to make that mistake again and start splitting up and get picked off. They have one objective, it's top lane, and I'm pretty sure they know that the buyback status is pretty bad for SGG.
Misery has a friggin' hex.
They're going to start fighting outside the base smoke screen. The element of surprise, a necessity here for SGG. They're going to jump forward with Flea. No, jump back. In fact, Moon Meander. They're going to bypass him completely. Jump forward for the Kunkka and the CM. Do a lot of damage. Not dead just yet, but they will be able to bring down one. The CM gets a little bit of a heal back and will do a little bit of damage. Smokescreen, though, on the deck. And Moon Meander can't cast, but Resolution's not being dealt with. Strike-clicking in to Sneaking. But Yawar finally has a chance to get on top of Resolution, but he does time-lapse that first life out. He does have the Aegis. Yawar is going to fall. And with Omnet the only survivor, that's going to be GG. 11k advantage total for Thunderbirds. Look at this graph. I don't know when you're ever going to see one like it. The Thunderbirds out of the way. Claim victory. A very shaky win, but hey, a win's a win.
So yeah, you asked about seeing that graph. I can tell you when you'll see it. Pretty much every single Ursa loss looks like that. It's like you get 25 kills ahead. You try and go high ground. You're unable to do it. And, we mentioned kind of the merits of the draft from Thunderbirds. They really banned out CC&C almost entirely, and they left him nothing left with that fifth phase Shadow Fiend ban to hit towers other than the Dragon Knight. The Dragon Knight just didn't work in the sense that it's a little bit too slow for their draft, I guess. And they go for the more comfort pick in the Ember Spirit and CC&C, and they play phenomenally for the first 30 minutes, but then just can't crack high ground against the Tinker. Really well drafted by Thunderbirds. Maybe in the grand scheme of the games, you look at them as minor missteps from CC&C and Yawar, but they end up being monumental. Just at the timing they happen, getting caught there, top, mid lane, and river. And Thunderbirds, this has got to be, at least for them, a good moral victory. They lost 2-0 to them yesterday. They were getting stomped for the first 30 minutes in this one, but they're able to kind of pull their socks back up, be stalwart and steadfast in base and defend, and they finally come out with the first win of the 3-game series.
And game 2, guys, hopefully it's going to be just as good as this one. Definitely back and forth. I think, you saw the graph. Hey, I could actually look at the graph still. This is not your ordinary game right here. So here's hoping for game